important things happen in Part 3 of Crime and Punishment. First, Raskolnikov's family finally comes to visit him from the provinces. He finally sees his mother and sister. From this meeting, we learn a little bit more about Raskolnikov's character, and we can put together a timeline for how he came to murder the pawnbroker. That timeline helps us to understand his dilemma and his character. He has a split personality of sorts. Second, Raskolnikov has his first run-in with his kind of nemesis, kind of savior, the policeman who is investigating the crime, Porfiry Petrovich, Porfiry as I will call him, tries to play the part of a doofus almost, but he is in fact a brilliant knower of the human soul and suspects Raskolnikov to be the killer almost from the beginning. Through Raskolnikov's interview with Porfiry, we learn more about his motive. In fact, his underlying worldview is exposed through an interplay between what we discover about his background and the timeline and what he reveals to Porfiry. I am going to cover Raskolnikov's meeting with his family with a focus on the timeline in this video. Then I will develop his famous interview with Porfiry, where we get a pretty definitive account of Raskolnikov's motives in the next video. Remember where we left off. Raskolnikov seems to have found purpose in serving the family of the dead Marmeladov. At the beginning of Part 3, he is almost hostile to his mother and sister when he sees them for the first time in 3 years. Raskolnikov is sullen. He says that they are tormenting him and asks them to go away almost immediately. Raskolnikov cannot imagine his mother and sister finding out about what he had done. He cannot imagine explaining it to them. And this makes him miserable, and he retreats into a solitude marked by a hatred for those he loves the most. Raskolnikov chases his mother and sister out of his apartment, and they go back to their own. Some hilarity ensues as a drunk Razumikhin falls for Raskolnikov's sister, who is said to be a stunning beauty. It is almost a normal love story. Boy meets girl, boy falls for girl, boy slanders girl's fiancé, who is, after all, a jackass. But we will get into that in due course. Let us focus on Raskolnikov. The mother and the sister ask Razumikhin questions about Raskolnikov's character. They had not seen him for a while, after all, and when they arrived in town, Raskolnikov appeared to be crazy. The mother asks, "What are his likes and dislikes? Is he always so irritable? What are his wishes and, so to speak, his dreams?" Razumikhin gives an answer that allows us to begin putting together a timeline about Raskolnikov's character. Here is what Razumikhin says. "I've known Rodion for 1.5 years. Sullen, gloomy, arrogant, proud. Recently, and maybe much earlier, insecure and a hypochondriac, but also magnanimous and kind. As if there really were two opposite characters in him, changing places with each other." These two young men met at the university. Raskolnikov's split personality began, as far as we can tell, with his exposure to radical ideas at the university. But there has also been a more recent change. Remember, Raskolnikov had not seen Razumikhin for a while, and it was only after the murder that he renewed acquaintances. We also learn that Raskolnikov sets a terribly high value on himself. His self-importance came out as being inhumanly cold and callous toward others, again, especially recently. When Dunya, the sister, says that Raskolnikov ought to have a woman around him, Razumikhin says that Raskolnikov doesn't love anyone, and maybe never will. This is his assessment of the Raskolnikov that has existed at the university. He is incapable of loving. We will have to delve into more of these details as we learn about how Raskolnikov was radicalized. Underline this conclusion. Radical ideas that are learned at the university do not go together with love. We learn another thing about the timeline near the beginning of Section 3. Raskolnikov's real illness, according to Dr. Zosimov, who is overseeing his recovery, such as it is, coincides with his leaving the university, which was about 6 months ago. This is precisely when Raskolnikov was writing his article on crime, as we will see. So the radical Raskolnikov has two stages. He had a split personality during the past year and a half when Razumikhin knew him. But during the last 6 months, he had been sick and monomaniacal as a result of certain ideas that had entered his mind. First, a split personality, then monomania and obsession with certain ideas. And when Razumikhin says that Raskolnikov cannot love, the mother objects. Before Raskolnikov left home for the university, he was actually engaged to be married. But it was a strange engagement, and she was a strange match. We learn later in the conversation that she was a sickly and homely girl, and she liked giving alms and kept dreaming of being in a convent. Raskolnikov even says that he would have liked her more if she had been lame or a hunchback. Raskolnikov, it seems, looked on his marriage with this lame girl as a kind of self-sacrifice, even to the point of denying his own family's wishes, since his mother indeed disapproved of that match. He will love what the world rejects. He embraces what others find repulsive. It seems that his impending marriage was a sort of martyrdom. His self-importance was mediated through a Christian context. He understood himself in the Christian universe. This lame fiancé, however, died before they could tie the knot. He is a bit ashamed about his past relationship now that he is under the influence of radical ideas. He calls his engagement a spring delirium. When asked if he still loves his dead fiancée, he says, no. It's as if in another world now. What does this broad outline show is that this earlier Raskolnikov admired a species of self-sacrifice. But the new Raskolnikov has an ambiguous relationship to self-sacrifice, or he hates self-sacrifice. Sometimes he likes it, sometimes he don't. This is part of his split personality. Let us take one of the most obvious examples. At the end of Section 2, we saw that Raskolnikov admired Sonia, who was selling her body as a prostitute for her family's benefit. He had determined that he could find purpose in life by helping her and her family. He considered her self-sacrifice entirely admirable. This evaluation is traceable to what we might call the old Raskolnikov. He was searching for a way out of his guilty conscience after the murder. He was returning to his old ways of evaluating, and his relation with Sonia will be crucial to the novel. Contrast that with Raskolnikov's harsh judgment of Dunya, his sister, who, he says, is marrying the despicable Luzhin precisely out of a desire to sacrifice herself. Just as Sonia is sacrificing herself for her family, Dunya appears to be sacrificing herself for her family. But Raskolnikov does not accept Dunya's sacrifice and finds it to be proud and despicable. You're marrying Luzhin for my sake, and I do not accept the sacrifice, he says to her later. He even more angrily makes the same point when he complains that Dunya simply wants to play the benefactress. He challenges her that if she marries Luzhin, her relationship with him, Raskolnikov, will disappear. It's either me or Luzhin, he says. And that is why when Raskolnikov speaks to her, he is in turn angry and sullen. He has a difficult time controlling herself. Dunya's sacrifice is repulsive, while Sonia's is noble. His evaluation of Dunya derives from the other part of a split personality, the radical part. Dunya, who resembles Raskolnikov physically and psychologically, also finds Sonya to be a noble person. When Raskolnikov introduces Sonya to his mother and sister, Dunya makes a deep, courteous bow to the social outcast. Raskolnikov is immensely proud of his sister. This is the old Raskolnikov. So Raskolnikov had been a Christian boy who rejected the faith when he went to the university. This created a split personality. Remnants of the old personality remained, to be sure, as we have seen in his evaluation of Sonya, and by the fact that he feels so bad about the murder and feels the overwhelming need to confess. But the new personality is also there, in his harsh evaluation of his sister, and in his desire to get away with murder in the face of people who suspect him. What are the underlying ideas of this new personality? How are they related to his split personality? Let us turn to the famous interview with the policeman Porfiry to uncover these all-important answers.